despite the fact that I'm on here every single week, one of the things we, I guess you could say, neglect is kind of what the experience and what the beginnings of an experience in California family courts are. So here's my question to you. So, individual, most of our viewers are going to be fathers here. So I'll say, father walks into your office and he's unmarried, has a young child. Um, what are the first things you tell him, and what are his experiences like in the beginning stages of going through California family courts?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, Mark. So I think that through the perspective of a father with a young child, the first thing you experience is just the magnitude of your own situation and how difficult it is to identify how to navigate the court process. And I think for most people, they kind of stumble around and they're looking at an upcoming hearing date, and you've gotten that far. Maybe you've managed to work with a paralegal and download some forms on your own. But it gets to a point for most of the fathers coming into my office where they realize what's at stake. And what's at stake is at least the temporary orders going forward to either establish legal and physical custody, to establish visitation, to establish the right to be a parent. And I think that there's a fear factor. I feel like my clients come in like just so worried and overburdened and fearing that their relationship with their child is at stake. And I
Mhm.
get that. I completely get that as a mom. I get that as a former single parent. Just the horror of trying to find your way in terms of identifying what do you do. So I think if the fathers actually come into my office, that's a great starting point. I don't think you navigate these courts without an attorney. We can talk a little bit later about with you, Mark, about ways to do that successfully. But I think that what I share with them is my own experience. So I was once that person who needed representation and realized that the procedural complexity was just above my ability at the time. You know, the vastness of the family court. I mean, in California, you're dealing with literally, if not the largest, one of the top three largest courts in the entire United States of America, on the basis of, state funding and how many people are just being serviced and processed through the courts. And you just realize, you know what, I don't want to be lost in this process. I need somebody who cares. I need somebody who knows the name of my child when I call, who knows the name of my child in court. And I want someone who knows what they're doing and cares about my life and the future of my relationship with my child. So that's what I talk about with them.
Yeah, you made a point that made me chuckle because I had an individual who I just spoke with today, and I actually met him in court, and he was represented at the time in court. And his complaint was his attorney showed up and didn't know his name or called him by the wrong name. So it can be a very big and a very important decision. I think you made a really good point in talking about a lot of dads come in scared, and I think a lot of our viewers, that they're a good chance they've been involved in the system. May have been chewed up and spit back out. But if you're a dad here watching and you're concerned, and the big one I see is moms make threats of, I'm going to you're not going to see the child. You're going to have to pay me all your money. You're going to have to do all these things. And the first thing I tell clients is that's not the case. I mean, I'm not going to. I haven't been. I've been practicing for a relative short period of time compared to a lot of my peers. But you talk to someone who's been around, and I don't know if you're familiar with David Pissar. I've had him on before. He's out in your neck of the woods, and now compared to 20 years ago, as crazy as it sounds, is very dad friendly. Courts are looking for a way. I mean, they're looking for a way to foster a relationship with both parents. Um, that
Mark,
I mean, what's been your experience around that? You have a little bit more experience in family court than I do. Have you seen a shift and change in that front?
absolutely. So let me pick up on a couple of your points, Mark, because they're great. having a great relationship with your an attorney is so important. And so if someone's dropping the ball in the name of your child in court, that's a huge red flag. You know, one of the things I like is when clients bring in photos. It's not only a source of evidence for the case that they've met the child and have spent time and held the child out as their own, but also humanizes what could otherwise be a file, right? I try not to take on too many cases where, you know, I can't learn about who my client actually is as a person and his connection to the child. And it just really helps when you have that picture, you know, with the father and child together, because, you know, I think that's what it's all about. Let me zoom out a bit to answer your question, Mark. Absolutely. I think courts are attuned to just how difficult it is, especially for pro pers to represent themselves. So if they come in with an attorney, it lets the court know, look, I know this is really serious. I don't want to drop any balls. I want someone who speaks your language, judge. And I think that the courts are extremely sensitized to how important it is to establish the father child relationship early on. Because one of the dynamics you get to experience, and I'm a 20 plus year practitioner, is the loss of the parent child relationship. And that can happen not because he doesn't care, not because he isn't fully committed and invested in the child's life, but because he has been literally isolated, alienated, cut off, and somehow through not having representation, um, fell through the cracks of the system. And that can happen. And so I think courts are very sensitive to even people who are troubled and may have had some initial issues in establishing the relationship. When they come back and they say, hey, you know what, I'm no longer um, uh, I'm no longer working out of state, or, you know, I struggled with addiction perhaps, you know, but here are the things I'm doing to get help. And if you just give me an entryway, I'll establish trust with the child. I'll rebuild my co-parenting relationship with the other parent. And I'll show the court that the whole, you know, the whole public policy of the law, which is to assure that a child has frequent and continuing contacts with both of their parents, can be realized through me, because it is the most tragic outcome for whatever reason when you have a child without either parent, unless there are some really compelling reasons and that parent is a threat to the child's mental, emotional, physical safety. But absent some extraordinary circumstances, you know, our entire court system is really centered around the policy of ensuring frequent and continuing contacts. And that bond is solidified through so many laws. But the bottom line is, I think it breaks the hearts of practitioners and breaks the heart of judges as well when fathers check out, right? And you see that dynamic, you know, where it's like there's just been so many barriers to accessing their child. So many times mom didn't show up. So many court hearings asking, begging for visitation, and they fall through the cracks and they check out. So it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So please, fathers, don't ever give up on your relationship with the child. There is a way, and your presence in that child's life can mean a world full of difference for their life trajectory and their outcomes. And professionals in the business, we know that.